Hello and welcome back to another episode of Cyber Voices, the official podcast of the Australian Information Security Association, otherwise known as ASA. I'm your host, as always, David Willett, and it is my pleasure to have you with us as we explore the diverse voices of the Australian cyber industry. This special edition of Cyber Voices was recorded at CyberCon 2024 and is part of our series from the conference highlighting some of the thought leaders that came together to make CyberCon so special. Welcome back to Cyber Voices, coming to you from day 2 of CyberCon 2024. My co-host today on day 2 is Simona Dimovski. Hello again, Simona.
Hello, it's good to be here.
It is good to be here. We keep saying hello to each other like we didn't just do this 30 seconds ago. But hey, at home, you're listening to these a couple of weeks apart.
Exactly.
That's right. Yeah. The magic of podcasting. We've got a really special guest with us at the moment. Sitting across the table from us, we've got Jason Plumridge from Tesseract. Jason, how you going?
I'm great, David. Thank you, mate, for having me on.
Awesome. So welcome to CyberCon. It's your first time? Third time? Fourth time? Fifth time?
Second or third time.
You've been giving a couple of talks yourself. Are you doing 2 talks?
Yeah, I'm doing 2. I did one earlier this morning around what is known as the SMEAX model.
Yep.
I'll explain that a little bit in a minute, which is used in law enforcement and military, and it's a way of briefing, for emergency operations or military operations. And the reason I've done that is because I'm ex-police, New South Wales, and ex-New South Wales RFS, so I've got a fair bit of experience in giving those sort of briefings as you get running out to an incident.
Yeah.
And in realistic terms, you can use that same model for giving your briefings of cyber risk and requesting for board and senior leadership. So it's a pretty good model to adopt.
And that was kind of the main title of one of your topics was a model for delivering cyber risk messages to leadership and the board.
Yeah, correct.
So, tell us a little bit about the talk.
Yeah, so we start off with just setting the scene with the experience, trying to create with the audience, why this is important and, why I'm proposing this. But the model itself is used right across military and law enforcement operations. And the reason it exists is because you need to create small, concise briefing messages, when you're going to a particular incident. So in my case, RFS fire, car accident, whatever it might be. And I kept getting asked questions around, how do you talk to boards? How do you approach it? How do you talk to senior leadership? I'm an up and coming IT manager. I want to eventually, go to CISO or CEO at some future point in my career. And so, well, you just got to treat them like any other person. Yes, okay, they've attained the apex of their careers, but they are just people. They're interested to know. They've got liabilities and all that sort of stuff that they want to do. So the model itself stands for a couple of things. So S for situation. So what is the situation you're currently dealing with in terms of cyber risk? What does our baseline look like? What do our controls look like? Where do we need to where's the security holes? I suppose you could say. Mm-hmm. Mission, so M, what's our objective? What is the outcome we're trying to seek here? What are we trying to get from the board or the senior leadership team? E is for execution. So, how are we going to execute this? And it's designed to plan that communication out before you get in the boardroom. Execute it. How am I going to talk about it? What am I going to prioritise, etc. So we talk about things like only choose 3 to 5 key points, right? You don't want to take any more to the board. You normally get 10 minutes with the board once a month, if you're lucky. So you've really got to be succinct in what you want. Actions. What are the actions that you want either the board to do to make a decision, to make an influence, to provide funding, etc. And then command and control and comms, which is a smaller piece of it, but it's about who's taking responsibility for that action. Who's going to be in charge of it, who's going to be accountable for it. And the last one is being support. So, what support resources do you need? I need funding. I need extra staff. I need these particular resources. I need someone to do an audit, whatever it might be. And so I just marry the two together and go, well, if it's good enough for the military and the law enforcement context, and we can use it there, there's no reason why you can't use it in any of your conversations.
And what's the reception been like to people adopting that framework?
I had quite a few comments after the session this morning, asking a bit more about the framework. Some of the guys from ex-military have gone, I've never thought about that. I knew about SMEAX, but I've never thought about using it in that context. We filled one of the rooms up there, which was surprising, really good. It was standing room only, so it was, I was pretty happy with it.
And how does this kind of link to what they, because I'm a CISO and I'm often told that I need to be able to tell a story, or I need to be a storyteller. And it sounds a bit like this is really just breaking the story down into its sort of logical narrative of let's start with where we're at to, well, what am I actually asking for right at the end?
Yeah, that's absolutely 100% correct. That's exactly what it is. It's just breaking down your communication into small bite-sized chunks that specifically target what you're after during that finite period of time that you've got to convince the board that you need the $2 million or you need, the other 10 resources to do this project. So it is just breaking it down.
I was going to ask a similar question more around how do you actually go through that mindset process to distill the information that you want to bring out? I think sometimes that can be some of the hardest sort of thing to do because there's so much information that we want to tell to the board. We know we've got limited time. How do you go through that process of figuring out as well yourself?
Yeah, so it's a good question, Simona. It's really around distilling, taking all the risk issues that you're interested in, having a look and prioritising those, like what is most important to the protection and security for the company. For me, it'd be around with data. So that's the key for me. And then you might be talking about access, you might need something else, but it's really around taking that huge list of risks that we all have over time and built up and distilling down which ones are the most critical for the business, which ones needs to be fixed now, which ones can I push off. Because if you put more than, say, 3 to 5 key points in that meeting, you've lost them.
Yeah.
Right? So don't ever try and do that is my opinion on that.
What do you find people really struggle with to be when it comes to being succinct? Because that's usually the challenge, right? I've been doing this for a long time, and I still find sometimes I'm giving way more detail than I need to.
I do it as well.
That's a challenge for me as well. I have to put my hand up on that one.
Yeah, look, cyber guys, especially even CISOs and CIOs, they tend to go down the technical path.
Yep.
Yes.
Boards are not technical. I'm not saying that there's no board members that are not technical, but high and above boards are about business. They're about revenue. They're about, controls, their own liability, regulatory stuff. So if you start going straight down into, how many metrics we had and what's hitting our firewall and what are the, the statistics, you lose them and they're not interested at that level. They can ask that question later if they are actually interested in it. And I think in the future, we're going to start to see cybersecurity specific directors on boards of companies.
I think we already are in some cases. Yeah, definitely.
It'll be expanding, I think you'll find. Too many compliance regimes and legislation to be looked at. Do
you find is it the dollars that really kind of tunes them in a little bit?
Not always, and you don't. No, I wouldn't say always. Okay. It's a key important part, especially if you've got a project that you need to implement in order to enhance the security of the organisation. But sometimes it can be as simple as getting something on their radar. So, changes to the ASD Essential 8 that are upcoming, and how is that going to impact it? Data sovereignty and data residency is an issue. Like we've got customers that are requiring us to have data sovereignty and data access only from Australia. Yeah, so you got to think about those sort of issues. And if the board then says, all right, well, we've purchased a new company, or we're going to outsource something or offshore it, then you've got to just take stock of those issues, and you might need their buy-in to either enhance that or stop that happening.
Yeah, and should you use this model to really only try and sort of get one message across? Can you try and blend multiple things into it? Because sometimes you mentioned right, you've got that finite amount of time.
Yep.
And sometimes you can be going in to see the board. You're told you're going to have 15 or 20 minutes, and then the secretary tells you actually get it done in 5.
Yeah.
How can you try and avoid that complexity when you've got to try and get multiple messages across?
Look, that's always a conundrum, and sometimes you just can't. Sometimes you can get the key one across in that 5 minutes, and that's all you've got. If you've got 15, you can probably do 1 or 2, but the worst thing you could do ever would be try and push everything in one meeting and not define the context, not tell them why, defining where the business requirement is for this as well, right? It's not just about IT, it's about how does this particular thing we want you to decide on or fund or whatever it might be, how does that relate to improvements in the business or cost efficiencies or any of those sort of issues?
Yeah, I've always found it pretty tricky. I mean, we all know that communication is, knowing your audience, tailoring your message, speaking their language.
Yep.
It sometimes can be really hard with boards because it just depends on sort of, what other boards they're on and what sort of, what they care about that particular month. I mean, obviously there's the overall business initiatives, but I've always found sort of that tailoring really hard. You never know what you're going to walk into is probably my point. And I wondered whether, what your experience was and potentially how we can use this framework to help us as CISOs or CIOs walking into that room to prep better.
So it happens all the time.
Yeah.
You're walking with one message that you're going to deliver and then they change it on you. And bias often comes into it because a lot of board members are on multiple different boards, different organisations, different industry groups, and they go, well, my last board meeting at such and such a company, they were doing this. Why can't we apply that here?
Yes,
and
hear that all the time.
Kind of gets your message railroaded. So you've always got to come back.
Yeah.
And this is where I think the model works, right?
Yeah.
You come back to what was the objective, or the mission of your communication, and then lay out why that this is a better model or better thing you need to do than what happened at their previous board.
Yeah.
But I don't think you don't then just diss them and go, no, that's that company. Don't worry about that, right? These guys and girls are experienced as board members, but they will bring in elements from what they've understood at other board meetings.
Yeah.
Right? So.
I'm interested to know as well, what do you think the education at board level is like around cybersecurity? When you're walking in with this sort of framework as well, what's the reception that you usually get on this?
So they don't really know about the framework.
Yeah.
Because you don't.
No, you don't advertise it. No.
Yeah. It's kind of like you build it into the briefing note for yourself and then you talk about it and reasons why. So you don't actually structure it like that. I think boards are still, some are good.
Yeah.
Some have cybersecurity people, ex-Big Four, those sort of places that do understand risk, that do understand controls, and they just get it. But there's a lot of boards, not-for-profits and smaller companies that just don't have any cyber knowledge at all. They outsource everything. In some occasions, we've kind of gone in there as consultants and helped them, to manage this process. So I think there is a lot of uplift in education to be done around cybersecurity for boards. I think they get the general security awareness because they're supposed to do that every year.
Yeah.
But that more detailed, what questions as a board member do I ask?
Yes.
I would always bring them back to things like, do you understand your liabilities as a director if we have a breach or if we lose some PII? Do you actually honestly understand what that means for you?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good way to bring it home. I've found as well doing sort of having cyber conversations, having cyber simulations or tabletop exercises at that really high level is quite helpful. And especially it would be great to, in future to think about, okay, how can we put your framework to work in this space?
I think firstly I'll say it's not my framework. It's
That's true.
been around for many years. I'm not claiming it by any means. I still think it would work.
Yeah.
Right? Because even in an incident, long-term incident, you're going over a couple of days potentially, you can still structure each of those elements of communication in that same sort of format, right? Where are we at now? What's the current status? What's the next objective we need to achieve? And your IR plans or your incident response plans should reflect that. So the model itself can still be applied in each of those briefings. Because you might be briefing the board initially, you might then have to brief a regulator, you might then have to, brief the legal team. You can still use that same style and model to make sure you touch all the touch points that you need.
Yeah. What I like about it is it's a good coaching tool, I think, for the more technically minded people who struggle to get to that level of succinctness. So there are some people who just kind of get it. I've been doing it for a while and I generally, I don't struggle too much, but I still, like I said before, I still find myself at times going, I need to refine this even further. But I've had to coach team members who I'm working with to help build their business acumen a little bit more and putting them in front of execs and boards. Yeah. And the first draft of what comes through is always like, oh, no, you can't. There's no way you're putting this in front of the bosses.
I am no different. I've red penned my own work before it's gone up there. Other people have red penned it.
Yeah.
And it just comes with practice and experience. But this is kind of why I started this presentation, which I first did at Gartner 2 years ago. And I still get the same questions. It's really around how do I talk to the board or senior leadership? What do I start with? I don't want to sound like I don't know what I'm doing from a technical background, but I need to explain this point, and I've been elevated. They can do it. There's absolutely no issue that they can do it. It's just confidence. It's about practice. So an idea for them would be to practice with a mate. Get someone that they know in senior leadership to listen to the presentation and give them some tips. And did you understand that? Yes, okay. Did you understand what my mission was? Yes, all right. Would you make this decision? Would you fund it? And it might be yes, it might be a no. But that experience and practice, it's the same reason, going back to your BCP and IR thing, you exercise it to get better at it. If you don't exercise it, then all that happens with senior executives and leadership is they do their best endeavours based on their knowledge and their experience, and the IR plan goes straight out the window.
Yeah.
So it becomes a useless document. So you don't want that to happen.
Would you like to see this model picked up more more broadly?
More broadly, I think it's just not in our industry group.
Yeah.
I think it's certainly relevant to be used in the context I've said it should be. Whether they choose to use it or not is really up to the individual. I had a question at the presentation, or just after the presentation, where someone said to me, so the next time I do my communication, I start off, well, this is the situation, this is the mission. I said, no, you don't need to do that. Just think about it, prepare for it, and always prepare for a board meeting. Yeah. Get your thoughts down, prioritise them, and use the model to guide your communication efforts.
Yeah. Almost encourages not to overthink a little bit, I think.
It does. And I always love to have a formula for things. It sounds like a bit of a formula as well, because I also find it hard to distill. I start thinking more from the technical side, and then I just have to pull myself up, to zoom out. And having a model for that it can be really helpful as well.
This is a process thing, right?
Yeah.
I'd love to geek out with the best of them as well. Yeah. We can go the technical, we can talk SOC, we can talk cloud systems and access control. That's really not what's required for a board and senior management. It has to be those softer skills, those communication skills, those. Basically, what you're trying to do is you're trying to influence an outcome and a decision. Yeah. With senior people who have the purse strings or the things you need. So you need to talk on their level in business terms.
Yeah.
That's great. And congratulations on what sounds like it was a really successful talk.
Thank you, Dave.
And I know you've got another one coming up, so best of luck with that. Enjoy the rest of the conference, and thank you so much for coming in and sharing your voice with us today.
I will do, and thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much. I'm going to definitely take something away from this talk as well. So
Excellent.
Thanks, mate.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Well, hello there, fellow podcasters. Are you looking to level up your podcast game? Well, let me tell you about This Is a Studio. This Is a Studio is where we record cyber voices each and every single week. They're located at 693 High Street in Pran and Ikla Hawthorne East. They're Melbourne's go-to video podcast studio. Whether you're starting a podcast or taking your podcast to the next level, they've got everything you need: quality equipment, a professional setup, and a team that lives and breathes podcasts. And if you're like us and thinking about going live, these are the folks behind the scenes at events like the AFL Grand Final, Equitina Melbourne 2024, and of course here at CyberCon 2024 as well. Seriously, these guys really know their stuff. So, if you're ready to make your podcast shine, check them out at thisisastudio.com.au. This is a studio where Melbourne's best podcasts come to life. Thank you for listening to another episode of Cyber Voices. Our music is by Sanar Garut, our show artwork is by Studio Quarantine, and we record our show at This Is a Studio in Pran, Melbourne, part of Popplant Productions. Please make sure you follow the show on your podcast platform of choice and leave us a 5-star review. This will help others find the show. Also, please follow the association on LinkedIn and Instagram. If you want to add your voice to our ever-growing chorus of diverse cyber voices, have questions, feedback, or would like to be a sponsor, you can do so by emailing us at cybervoices@aisa.org.au. That's cybervoices@aisa.org.au. Are you an ASA member? If not, you should consider joining our network of over 12,000 members across Australia. An ASA membership can open doors, build professional networks, create lifetime friendships, and offer exclusive training, events, and other perks. Become a member today by heading to our website at asa.org.au. That is all for today. I hope you will join us again next time on Cyber Voices.